The Internal Stability Index: Why Men Struggle with Power in a Relational World. My work didn't begin with power. It began with fear. Through 11 kilometers per second, I spent years circling the same observation from different angles. Most people, especially men, are not held back by a lack of intelligence or opportunity, but by a fear of judgment. A fear of being seen failing, a fear of being exposed as inadequate. What consistently stood out to me was this: people don't get better because they don't get enough practice with failure and rejection. In fact, they avoid it. And because they avoid it, they never build the internal capacity required to grow. That insight came first, long before frameworks, research, or assessment. When I began thinking more explicitly about power, like who has it, who loses it, and why, it forced me to interrogate that original intuition a little more rigorously. That line of thinking led me into research on power and leadership. Across psychology, organizational behavior, and history, certain dimensions show up again and again as prerequisites for influence. However they're labeled, these sets of behaviors, I call them the pillars of power, cluster around a few core ideas: emotional regulation, perception and presence, social awareness, and some form of internal long-term consistency. In my work, I refer to the first of these, emotional regulation, as internal stability, where the research fell short. At first glance, that research suggested a broad agenda: teach men better relational skills, improve emotional intelligence, and help them manage perception. All that is true as far as it goes, but something about it didn't fully resolve the question for me, because it didn't explain why so many men never developed these skills in the first place. At the same time, as a business coach, I found myself asking a practical question: why do some people refuse to take actions required to sell themselves, their products, or their ideas, even when they know what to do? The answer wasn't strategy, it wasn't emotional. People don't want to experience the feeling of not being wanted. And I'm choosing that phrase deliberately rather than using fear of rejection, because that phrase, fear of rejection, sanitizes the experience. What people actually resist is the idea that someone, anyone, might not want them. Once you see it that way, the solution becomes uncomfortable but clear. Growth in any meaningful area of life requires repeated exposure to that experience. Maturity and confidence don't come from avoiding it, they come from tolerating it long enough to handle the given situations with ease. Those who succeed eventually learn to accept those experiences, if not embrace them. Only then can someone get the necessary steps with minimal pain, and in some cases, even a sense of enjoyment. The capacity to remain intact while experiencing the possibility of not being wanted is what I mean by internal stability. Internal stability is the capacity for emotional regulation under evaluation. The ability to experience internal disruption, whether it be anxiety, embarrassment, rejection, or uncertainty, without withdrawing from the situation that caused it. Without that capacity, the other pillars of power are inaccessible. You can't learn social calibration if discomfort makes you leave. You can't manage perception if evaluation feels threatening. You can't build influence if every misstep feels like judgment on who you are. This is where men, especially, are undertrained. Many men regulate stress by retreating into tasks. When things feel uncertain, they get busy. When judgment looms, they focus on execution. This strategy is often rewarded early in life. It produces results. It looks like discipline. It can even look like resilience. But for those who don't immediately recognize this pattern, think of a programmer who keeps refining the code so it won't be questioned in the meeting, or the handy husband who responds to tension at home by fixing things, repairing, adjusting, improving. Because working feels cleaner than engaging in conversation that might turn into an argument. In both cases, the instinct is to avoid the conflict and the possibility of failure that comes with it. This avoidance comes with hidden costs, however. It prevents learning how to deal with people under pressure. Failure then doesn't lead to instruction. Instead, it becomes something to avoid, outwork, or compartmentalize. Over time, this creates men who are competent at managing tasks, but increasingly ineffective in relational ones. And in a world increasingly dominated by service and automation, the skills men have become obsolete. Once I saw internal capacity this way, not as a personality trait, but as a trainable capacity, it became clear that it functions as a foundation for everything else. It is what allows someone to stay present long enough to learn. It is what turns failure from a threat into data. It is what makes growth possible rather than theoretical. That realization forced an expansion of my coaching practice. If internal stability is foundational, then we should be able to assess it, should be able to surface how someone currently responds to failure, rejection, and relational stress, and use that awareness as a starting point for practice. That's what led to the development of the Internal Stability Index, ISI. The ISI is not a personality test and not a measure of worth. It's a structured way of identifying learned response patterns, how someone makes meaning of failure, how they regulate stress, where they avoid relational risks, and whether discomfort leads to learning or withdrawal. These patterns are not fixed, they are trained, and more importantly, they can be retrained. The work that follows is not about insight for its own sake, it's about practice, controlled exposure to failure, reflection without self-indictment, learning to remain intact while being evaluated. This has always been the core of my work, and the Relational Power Framework sharpened that insight. It showed me exactly where the work had to begin. Before men can manage perception, influence others, or lead effectively, they must first learn how to stay present under pressure. That is internal stability. That is what the ISI measures, and that is where the work now starts. I'm currently offering a limited number of Internal Stability Index assessments for men, with live debriefs as part of refining this work. If this resonates with you, click on the link in the bio to take the assessment.